Okay, here we go. So the first thing that I would like for us to do, and you can write the equation in your notes, I know you can't make the graph, but you can write the equation, is I would like for us to write the equation of the line. So the first thing, the easiest thing to find is the y-intercept. So remember, the y-intercept is where the line is crossing the y-axis. So what is the y-intercept in this line? -5. And we also need to find the slope. So remember, when we find the slope of a line, that we're starting from the left, we're moving to the right. So that means I'm going to need to go up and then right. So this is positive slope. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4. So some people already said 3/4, and you are right. The slope is 3/4. So now we're going to write our equation. Remember, we're using slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So our equation is y equals 3/4 x minus 5. You want to go ahead and, the simplified way would be to have just -5. Okay? You're technically correct, though, Dawson. All right, so everyone's okay with writing the equation of that line? All right, hopefully that was a review of that. Now I'm going to give you another, so you have that equation written in your notes. Write that equation in your notes. Y equals 3/4 x minus 5. Now we're going to write the equation of this graph. So graph B. So let's first identify our y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? 2. And you can see that our slope is positive again. And we're going up 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3/4 again. So y equals 3/4 x plus 2. Okay, everyone all right with that? So you have the slope for the graph B in your notes? Okay. Now, if I put both of those lines on the same graph, you can see that they are parallel, correct? Okay. What can you say about the equations that you have written in your notes? What can you say about the equations in your notes? So this is the important part. So graph A and graph B have the same slope. So right here, this is an important thing. Parallel lines have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. Parallel lines have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. And some of you say you remember that from last year, so that's good. Now we're going to talk about perpendicular. All right, now we're going to talk about perpendicular lines. So again, I know that you're not going to be able to write these graphs in your notes, but that's okay. First of all, what does perpendicular mean? Very good. So a lot of times people will just tell me that it's intersecting lines, but she knew to add on that it's not just intersecting lines, it's lines that intersect and form a right angle. So perpendicular, okay? So here is graph A. So we're going to write the equation for graph A. Why don't you try writing the equation on your own? Why is it called a what? So identify the y-intercept, find your slope, then put it into your formula. So the y-intercept is 2. The slope is 1/4, up 1, right 4. So you should have written the equation y equals 1/4 x plus 2. Okay? Hopefully you have that equation written. Graph B, looks like this. Find your y-intercept. It's obviously a nice negative. Slope Dave and have fun. So B would be 3. Slope, we said it was negative, but it's going to be down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1. So negative 4 over 1, but the best way to write that is just negative 4, remember? So y equals negative 4x plus 3. Remember, it's not wrong if it's negative 4 over 1, but negative 4 is really the proper way to write that. So when I put these two equations on the same graph, it looks like this. You can see that they intersect and they form right angles. They're perpendicular. And when we look at the two equations next to each other, we see this. So in parallel, the slopes were exactly the same. What do you notice about these, Calvin? What do you mean they're opposite? Reciprocals and... You said opposites, but what does opposites mean? But there are opposites of numbers. Like, what's the opposite of 5? Okay, so positive and negatives are opposites. So they're opposites in that they're positive and negatives, and then you're also doing the reciprocal. Yes, ma'am? Cool. So here is what we want to say about that. Perpendicular lines, the slope is the negative reciprocal of each other. So if it starts off negative, then a perpendicular would be positive. If it starts off positive, then the perpendicular would be negative. But we're doing the reciprocal, flipping the fraction. If it's a whole number, write it as a fraction, then flip it. Just like you would when you're dividing fractions. Alright, next. What I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to graph a line parallel to y equals 2/3 x plus 5, and it goes through 0.1. So if you're ever asked to do this, you would first graph this point, plot this point. And remember, these notes will be online, so if you need them, they'll be there. I know that it's hard to graph in your notes. So 0, -1 would be right here. That's our y-intercept. And then they're talking about parallel. So I don't need to graph this equation. I just want to graph a line that's parallel to it. So since it's parallel, I'm looking at the slope, and I want to use that exact slope. So my y-intercept is my starting point, not the origin, the y-intercept is. And now I'm using the slope of 2/3. So up 2, right 3, and there would be my line that would be parallel to this equation. Make sense? No, I'm not going to do two separate lines. I'm not going to graph this one. In this one, in this equation, I want us to graph a line that's going to be perpendicular to this equation. So again, I want to plot this point first. That's my y-intercept. Always start with that, 0, -1. Now, in this equation, the slope is 2/3. If I want perpendicular, then first of all, flip it, 3/2, and then make it negative. -3/2 is what I want to use. So for negative slope, I'm going down 3, right 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And there would be a line that would be perpendicular to this line. Pretty easy, right? All right, this is going to be... All right, so for those of you that may have been absent on Monday we did notes, and in the notes we were taking equations that were not written in slope-intercept form, and we were writing them in slope-intercept form. So what we were doing is we were getting the y by itself. The people that were here, do you remember doing that? So if I want this y by itself, the first thing that I would do is subtract my 3x. So that's going to give me 2y equals. Now, good. I could write negative 8 minus 3x, but when I'm writing slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, I want my x closest to the equal sign. So I'm going to write negative 3x minus 8. And now divide everything by 2. Both of the terms over here get divided by 2. Good. Now, and the y-intercept part is not even that important on these. All right, let me slow down for a second because I see if he's confused, then probably other people that were not here on Monday are confused. Negative. But you never write slope as a mixed number. Okay? You leave slope improper. All right, so the slope in this equation is right here, correct? The slope. So when over here I'm saying parallel slope, isn't that exactly the same? Yeah, negative 3 over 2. What would be the perpendicular line slope? Positive 2/3, yes. All right, let's try this one. So here you have an equation, negative x minus 6y equals negative 24. So I want you, let's just first start off by writing it in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Everyone should be trying that in their notes. Some of you are listening, some of you are not listening, others of you are doing it in your notes. The next thing that I want to do is I want to divide by negative 6. And I'm dividing both of these terms by negative 6. So on the left side, I'm left with y. Now, what number is in front of x? A 1. So 1 over, or 1 divided by negative 6 would just be a negative 1/6. Okay, just leave it like that. It's fine. You want your slope. Your slope is normally a fraction. Okay, so 1 divided by negative 6 is just negative 1/6. What's a negative divided by a negative? Positive 20, positive 4. So now that we have it in slope-intercept form, what is the slope? Negative 1/6. So when we're going over here and we're saying parallel slope and perpendicular slope. All right, good. So some of you said 6 over 1 and then they're like, oh, that's 6. So you definitely want to write it as just a 6. Very good. All right, now we're actually finally ready to do, no. We're ready to do the kind of problems that you will find on the assignment. So, this is going to be our notes for how to do the problems on the assignment. It says, write the equation of a line passing through the given point, 2, 5, that is parallel to the given equation. So first of all, what is the parallel line's slope? 1/2. It's the same, right? So the parallel line slope is 1/2. Step 2, rewrite y equals mx plus b with that parallel slope. So instead of m, I'm going to put y equals 1/2 x plus b. I'm just replacing m with my new slope. Step 3, substitute in 2, 5 for x and y and solve for b to find the y-intercept. We have done this on an assignment before break. You may not remember. Remember that 2, 5, 2 is x and 5 is y. So I'm going to say 5 equals 1/2, x is 2, and that is going to be your y-intercept plus b. Remember doing that? So what is 1/2 times 2? 1. So 5 equals 1 plus b. So that means b equals 4. So we know slope. We know y-intercept. Now we just need to write the equation. Y equals 1/2 x plus 4. So this is only going to apply to a couple of the problems on your assignment. The front side is parallel, the back side is perpendicular, but not all of the equations are given to you in slope-intercept form. Some of them are given to you in other forms. So today I'm going to pick and choose which problems I want you to do. So I would like for you to do, let's go back to your agenda page maybe. How about today you do problem number 1, you do problem 6, you do problem 3, they have these in a different order than I'm used to, problem 4. Okay, let's just start off by doing 4 of the problems. So there's 8 problems on the front side, you're doing 4 of them.